Good morning, church. Good to be with you this Saturday morning. And I'm excited that we're getting to be in Romans and take some large chunks of Romans as we read. It helps us see Paul's points a little bit better, especially as we go through chapters 1 through 4. We can see his argument develop of starting in 1:17 that the righteous will live by faith. But then he goes into a discourse of the goodness of the law, that your righteousness could be established by following the law that God prescribed, the Mosaic law. But then he goes into chapter 3 to say, but nobody does that. It's impossible because no one is righteous, not even one. Nobody desires God. And then he shows the paragon of the Jewish faith, Abraham, and he lets us know when did his righteousness come? Wasn't it before circumcision that he was justified by faith and called a friend of God? And so he reminds us how we're all then grafted into that faith and brought in because Abraham was declared righteous before the law was applied to him, and so that we can all share in that Father Abraham-ness. And so this gives us this overarching view of what God has done and how Paul views the law as a keeper. You know, it almost was this thing that reminded people of their awfulness, so that when Jesus came, they would recognize the grace and the mercy and the joy that came from Christ. And so what is interesting here at the end of chapter 3, verse 31, it says, do we then nullify the law through faith? Absolutely not. On the contrary, we uphold the law. Remember Jesus' words when he says, I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill the law. And Paul here says, are we then nullifying the law through faith? No, we're upholding it. So how is a Christian to relate to the law? Well, this is just kind of a punchline of the sermon that is going to be brought on Sunday, the message. But we want to look at the heart of what is being delivered in the law. We can go to any prescription in the Old Testament, especially, I suppose, we could go to the Ten Commandments and say, where do we see the heart of God here? And if you want the full treatment of that, I certainly invite you to come on Sunday to church as we talk about it together and seek to understand the Christian's relationship to the law. But we would be wrong to see the law as something as evil. The reason that we delight in and study the Old Testament is it was a precursor to our faith-based righteousness and the way that God prescribed the people to come to him and to have a relationship with him. And so we should look at that and say, God, how were you prescribing people to be in a right relationship with you? And where do I see your heart behind the prescriptions that you gave that are universal and forever? And how can I apply those into my life so that I, like Paul, can uphold the law, and yet it's not my source of righteousness. The gift of Christ is my righteousness. He is it for me. Well, let me know what your thoughts are here. What's your favorite book of the Bible to read through and take in large chunks? I'd love to know. We'll talk to you later.